Folks, if you're wondering why the African National Congress got smacked upside the head in this local election, there's a lot of talk about service delivery, the failure of the ANC, corruption, theft, ineptitude. All of that comes into play. But there's another factor here, and it's the unequal justice that happens in South Africa. It's ironic that a country in which a group of people claim to have fought for liberation, for equality for all, don't seem to have it. Now, let's set aside the fact that the reality is that in a court case, it's up to the judge to make a determination on bail. But quite frankly, I'm getting a little tired of seeing unequal application of the law in South Africa, particularly when it comes to South Africa's minorities. That's right, folks. We saw 3,000 rand of bail applied to the accused murderers in the Brendan Horner murder, in which he was tortured and murdered and hung from a post to send a frightening, chilling domestic terrorist threat to anyone that would challenge those who are into cattle rustling, most likely, waiting for that determination, but that appears to be the case in the Brendan Horner murder. Also turns out that the two people accused probably had nothing to do with it. It was actually law enforcement syndicate criminals that were behind it, supposedly. Whatever the case is, 3,000 rand for murder. And then a gentleman falsely accused of domestic terrorism on the 6th of October last year was charged with thousands of rand, a huge fine. The argument by the magistrate being that, well, it happens to be based on what someone can pay. Well, there was no domestic terrorism. It was utter nonsense. It's simply a smokescreen to cover up the failure of the government in this case and the police complicit behavior in it. Well, let's take a look at recent events in another case. So I've just done a report on the murder of an Indian sugarcane farmer by a 76-year-old black South African who shot him in the neck over a purported dispute over cattle grazing when the man who did the murder apparently had no cattle, didn't work on the farm, and one has to wonder what he was even doing there. Nonetheless, a 58-year-old South African father of three, grandfather, is dead. That gentleman received 1,000 rand bail for murder. He turned himself in and was rewarded with 1,000 rand bail. $67. He's currently walking around. Mr. Zulu is not in prison. However, what about the case of 68-year-old Garth Simpson? No bail for farmer facing murder charge. There were elations outside the Glencoe Magistrates Court on Thursday after a farmer charged with murder of a 17-year-old teenager was denied bail. Members of the public who had gathered outside the court danced and sang struggle songs upon hearing the news that the farmer Garth Simpson had been denied bail. Never mind the fact that one can make the clear argument that singing struggle songs for liberation is likely racist in its nature. What does that have to do with the shooting of a teenager in 2021? Nothing. Simpson appeared in court for the murder of Quiniso Dlamini, who was shot dead at Simpson's farm in Glencoe in October. Simpson was also charged for possession of an unlicensed firearm. Now, for their part, the civil rights organization in mid-October, AfriForum, said that they would be giving legal support to Garth Simpson. Now, Garth Simpson, was he denied bail because he has the support of a large organization with resources? Why was this 68-year-old denied bail over an alleged shooting when we have a 76-year-old black South African who turned himself in for a shooting? And there are witnesses to it. Unequal justice. This is another reason why the African National Congress was handed repudiation on the 1st of November 2021. The Minister of Police wants to disarm South Africans, law-abiding South Africans, who was killed, a 58-year-old unarmed man, by a person with a gun, who got granted bail for $67, 1,000 rand. Your life is worth nothing in South Africa, according to Beckett Cele, Ronnie Lamola, and the African National Congress. And folks, if you think it's just white people who are suffering like this, the man murdered was an Indian. Whites, coloreds, Indians, black South Africans, all the victims of this horrific violence from an uncaring, unjust, race-hustling African National Congress. And a court system that it clearly applies the rule of law unequally to South Africans. Why? Why? Well, if you're not a subscriber to Chris Wyatt Africa, hey, take a moment, folks, and become one. Smash the button right down there. Garth Simpson denied bail, 68 years old, remanded to prison. God knows what's happening to him in prison. While 76-year-old named Zulu walks free after walking up and shooting a sugarcane farmer, father of three, grandfather, in the throat and killing him, executing him. He's walking free. after paying $67 bail. There's no justice in South Africa. It's a farce.